Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? This is Priest Jacobs with another episode of the Worthy Cause podcast on the Arena Network. Go to the arenasc.com to check out all the cool stuff that we have on the platform on the Arena. You can also check out my Substack page. You can check out my columns, my writings, all this really, really great stuff that everybody that's contributing and doing for the Arena Network. Shout out to all of you for checking this out. We have another interview that we're doing it kind of differently. A lot of the interviews are going to be virtual. Usually if I'm shooting something in my home studio, I have somebody to help me shoot, but we're shooting this at 9:00. And that's how dedicated we are to getting some really, really great content. Shout out to my guest tonight, who I've known for over 20 years. We have Sanford Greene, who's a 2-time Eisner winner, for his graphic novel, Bitter Root, who recently put out a Doom comic book that is probably the number one selling book that's going on right now. Y'all can't find it unless y'all are going to try to pay poached prices on eBay right now. An all around amazing, great comic book illustrator, creative writer, anything in the comic industry. He's been a beacon of light as far as representing the African American community and having that term a seat at the table. He's been a great contributor for years. Thank you for pulling up to the crib, man. What's up, man? Sanford Greene.
Man, look at that.
Yeah.
Take you on the road for a PR or something.
Let's go, man. Let's make it happen.
Get you out there with me on the road. Come to San Diego, Comic-Con.
Is it over? Did it happen in June? Or is it
coming in July?
Okay.
Be in July, man. So,
don't look at me. I'll pull up. I've done it before. Shout out to
you
Patrick.
Have done it.
Yeah, shout out to Patrick Reed, who's always doing the hip hop.
He's doing
the comics component. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's been trying to get you on here for a while. I know you've been really, really busy. For the people that don't know you, what we try to do with the Arena Network, or at least when I try to do this podcast, I always talk about creatives. All the time I've been growing up, people say, hey, you got to get out of South Carolina if you're going to do something with your work. If you got to either go to Charlotte, Atlanta, West Coast, New York, whatever. So I come to the conclusion that if you make a decision to stay in South Carolina, it's a revolutionary act. So my question is, for the industry that you're in, what made you look at the business and be like, all right, I want to stick around in South Carolina. Why South Carolina?
Why South Carolina? Honestly, it's where I grew up. It's family. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge component. It's probably number one for both me and my wife, Leslie. So in truth be told, real estate.
Yeah.
Just keep it a buck, man. Being here, we had many opportunities to move to Atlanta, which isn't bad. That's an easy one. But then LA, we were, had opportunities to move out there. And, I was very close, really close, like as close as we're sitting right now. Had an opportunity to go out there, and I'm so glad I didn't.
Why is that?
The ancestors were talking. They said, do not go out there right now. At that point in time, this was 2000 and I think it was 2012. Mm-hmm. Truth be told, my wife just wasn't feeling it. Too far away from, again, family. And I reluctantly said, okay, we'll stay on this side.
Oh, so you weren't no.
Oh, I was pretty much there. My mind was already there. My body was in South Carolina. My mind was in LA at that point in time. And honestly, couldn't have been a worse time to go, just from a financial standpoint, not in terms of our finances, but just in terms of where things were. Because the recession, I just wasn't really thinking. I thought I was thinking about that, but I honestly I wasn't thinking with the right components that would make that type of move successful. It works over here, but at that time it would not work moving to LA. So we backed out, and I'm glad I didn't do that. Shortly after that, my wife. She definitely had some physical things that started happening with her. She took ill. That would have been insane trying to do
a bi-coastal.
Trying to do that. And, the career and stuff would have been okay. But honestly, the career is okay where I'm at right now.
Well, it's better than okay, man. To be honest. So, you worked on the latest Spider-Man movie that came out, the Spider-Verse film. When's the next one coming?
That's a good question.
Oh,
well, the truth be told, the writers' strike put everything behind. So if we are talking where things were, oh wow, it was last year this time. So about a year ago, part 2 was out.
It's almost to the date that we did the
almost to the date, and the plan before the strike was to release it 6 months after the one that came last year, part 1, and obviously the writer's strike put everything on hold, so there wasn't anything being done for 7-8 months.
Wow.
Maybe I guess that's how long the strike was. And just imagine nothing is being done, and when things got resolved with the strike and everything, people were still trying to catch up with things that were on the table that was already in progress. And so this hadn't even started yet. The third part, we were still celebrating the last one. So long story short, it will be a while. We're looking at probably another year or two. I'm being very modest about that.
As long as y'all don't have the Blade treatment, that's a whole nother
conversation for real.
Like, I don't know how that happens, but the Spider-Man movie, I think I told you when the first one came out, I thought it was the greatest thing that I've ever seen Marvel do. I was one of those moments where I was like, dang, I wish I had like a son to take to this, right? It was such one of those moments.
You can borrow one of mine.
Come on, it's a new wave. Come on, no, but it was one of those moments where you started to see everything kind of gelling together, where the idea of combining hip hop culture, black and brown culture, and this kind of books, it wasn't taboo anymore. Like, there was this theory that you would hear, like Hollywood always talk about how it might not be the best like viable solution to do this, and so all of a sudden you're seeing like something like the Spider-Verse films that just effortlessly, bring in hip hop culture, and we were involved, and I brought Colicon, which is a hip hop comic book convention, but that was like in 2010. It feels like it was so new that now it feels like everything's catching up. If I would have done Colicon now, it would have been a lot easier, right?
Are you making an announcement right now?
Well, that's it. But my question is, you have such hip hop sensibilities with your work, right? Even your Doom book that just came out.
Right.
It's like, you put little tidbits of things for the fans out there. So you open up with the lyrics from accordion, and things that, people resonate with that. Yeah. Do you think that, or did you face any pushback wanting to be more hip hop oriented with your work when you first got into the industry? Somebody telling you to not blacken the black so much.
Well, yes, to that point, but to your other point, we're in a space now where those things. Look, 90% of creative grew up in the hip hop culture. That's the thing that a lot of people are like, wow, there's so many different diverse stories now. There's more, that has a sensibility to hip hop and urban culture, what have you. Most of the creatives, we grew up in that. If you look at really more than just what we're doing, it's almost in everything now. If you look at the average TV commercial, you might just hear, a Black Sheep, song on a car commercial.
Yeah, I heard a Digable Planet song on a Porsche commercial.
Yeah, Planet is but these creatives that are behind these promotions and productions, they're all coming from, hip hop culture. We all grew up in that. So yeah, at first definitely challenging, but now we're kind of all in. It's kind of like almost expected. Like you should have some kind of, nod to something that even with my editor at Marvel, when I pitched the idea of using some of MF Doom's lyrics to go in the Doctor Doom story, because they obviously, MF Doom was inspired by Doctor Doom. His whole mantra in the character of MF Doom, the mask, is all a derivative of Doctor Doom. So I thought it was just kind of natural to give some kind of nod to how those two entities kind of, are inspired by one another in many ways, more so MF Doom with Doctor Doom. But look, my editor, he's from Kentucky. Okay, he is. If you see him, you will say, yeah, he's from Kentucky. Button down, plaid shirts, and even he was like, wow, that would be amazing if you use MF Doom's reference. So I say all that to say that hip hop culture is culture now. It's the zeitgeist. So the average Joe from Kentucky would have some idea of the reference that we're referring to in a story like that.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea that you brought up, how hip hop is getting to these new levels. I'm torn by a few things, right? Because anytime like hip hop is in a public sphere, rarely is it something positive. It's my theory about when South Carolina is in a public eye or the national spotlight. Outside of Dawn winning championships, it's one of the things like South Carolina. It's going to be if they're outside of the state. When you're looking at everything from the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef, you look at what's been happening with the public downfall of like somebody like Diddy. And
So you want to go down that rabbit hole, man?
I trust you in being able to have nuance. You ain't scared of this.
Sure.
But my thing is, for someone that grew up on the culture, where do you think responsibility, as far as like as a ambassador of hip hop culture, do you feel like that extra pressure? I want to touch on hip hop culture. I want to make sure I'm in a positive light. It's sort of like, the Jordan and the public service. Jordan, can you really think about, your culture? And that's probably a bigger one when Jordan's being questioned about black culture. And he's just like, I just want to be black.
Sure.
You feel a responsibility when you're like, look, I'm not just a guy that's in a comic book industry.
Right.
And you feel like a sense of responsibility of making sure that, you're telling certain stories and that you're representing people that look like you, that the industry might have a blind side to at times.
I do feel a sense of responsibility when it comes to not just specifically me as a creative of color, but to be, you say ambassador. I like to almost coin it more of as a bridge. Like I want to extend the potential pathway to get other young creators of color opportunities. Like I teach at Benedict College, historically black institution, went to school there. I can only imagine what I would have done if I had someone like me at that time.
Yeah.
Because I was very much an anomaly. People would look at me and say, man, you're still doing that comic thing or that drawing thing or whatever. They didn't no one could. And these are people that I would consider friends, but they just did not, if you didn't shoot hoops or run real fast, jump real high, or, or even on the other side of being a doctor, lawyer, those real, what we call safe jobs. Because again, that was the time period where was considered the pathway to success. I took this path. I created my own path, and it was extremely hard. And knowing that the things that worked, I wouldn't say work against me, but the things I had to bring along with me was my skin color and the sensibilities that come along with that, the things that influence me, that makes me who I am, whether it be the music that I listen to, the clothes that I wear, the words that I say. Those things are a part of me. Again, you can call it Black culture or what have you, is still a part of me. So what am I going to do with that? Throw it away and pretend that it didn't exist, or I'm going to embrace it and represent it in many ways through my art. That was the first way of trying to open the door to an audience who's 90%, at least at that time, 90% white male. So just imagine trying to tell a story coming from my culture to that audience. Like, whoa, that's not, that looks weird, or that's different, or I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. You know, they didn't say those things like that, but that's what they were saying. This makes me uncomfortable because it was different. So I had to really find my way. How do you navigate trying to tell your story? And when I say tell my story, at the time, it wasn't about telling your story. It was about the way that I depicted my art was influenced from my culture. And to try to bring it into that space was, again, it was jarring. They didn't know what to do with it. So they wanted to label me, oh, you're that cartoony guy, or your stuff is wonky, or whatever you want to call it. That some people did say hip hop. Oh, you got that hip hop style. You know, again, it came across ignorant to some degree, derogatory or what have you. And again, I say all that to say what I had to go through. We're in a space now where even without me, the young creatives of color, they have an opportunity because of where things are culturally, right? It's a lot more opportunities in that sense, but there's still some, dare I use the word, gatekeepers that still want to hold on to that traditional look or aesthetic because of it. Look, it's in the zeitgeist in general, right? This our influences, uh, our way of life is pop culture almost at this point. Like I say hip hop culture, but hip hop culture is pop culture. But I think just our culture in general is super like the thing. And they are not good with that.
Right? Well, I think everything that, especially with being creative, I think it's like trying to have a conversation for either something that hasn't been brought up before, or you're taking a baton and taking the conversation deeper. So when I look at something like Bitterroot, that's two-time Eisner winner, there's a movie being made, hopefully. I don't know the details of that, but tell me about that. You know, it feels like a very deliberate story that focuses on not just Black culture, but Black culture from, a time period like the Harlem Renaissance. Tell us the intention of that. And did you feel like a fear of being able to tell such a niche story that was there fear that the public wouldn't get it?
I didn't fear that. I didn't fear any of that. I just feared that people wouldn't notice it, because getting it is one thing, but noticing it, like it's a story that we're trying to tell, that we want people to know that it's there. I was a little nervous about that. Like, oh, I hope that we can, amongst the hundreds of other, stories, titles that are out there. And I'm not just talking about, diverse titles. I'm talking about just how can we compete against Spider-Man? How can we compete against Batman? These known staples, cornerstones of the industry. How do we permeate through that? And then it dawned on me, going back to your previous question about being somewhat of a representative of the culture of Black culture specifically, I started thinking about how our culture loves fantastical stories. We love sci-fi. We love fantasy. We we love anime. We love comic books, but you don't necessarily see the I call it the powers that be cater towards that. You go to a comic, but I go to comic cons, comic conventions across the country, and I would say it's 60-40, Black to white, or even to some degree, if you want to describe people of color, Latinos and Asians and so on and so forth, along with Black, it's 50, it might be 60-40 the other way around. So I'm thinking, well, they're out here, but if they're out here and they're not necessarily buying or familiar with a lot of, because you used to hear the stories like, where are the Black stories, or where are the diverse stories, or what have you. And that was my fear, was like, people don't know where to look.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to show them where to look. If I don't show them where to look, they won't know. And we'll be creating this thing that nobody knows about. And, because the industry, my industry, the comic industry in general, is not designed to cater to diverse audiences. It's catered to promote to a very specific niche audience that loves comics, period, that will go to, they call them Wednesday Warriors. And that may be Blacks and
Wednesday Warriors, because that's when the new comic books come out.
When the new comics come out. It's a system that is archaic. It's not really sustainable, to be honest with you. That's a whole nother conversation. So I say all that to say we had to come up with ideas that will get our story in the front of the people that it would matter to the most. We started going to HBCUs. Teaching at one definitely was a great start. We started doing like workshops, symposiums. We did college. We did pretty much a HBCU tour promoting these stories. And that's what jump-started. The funny story is that's what Stan Lee did back in the days to make Marvel successful. He went on college campuses. He didn't went no HBCUs. He didn't do that.
He go to Howard University.
He went to Howard. He down there in the state. Said, what do you know here down here, my brothers? Black Panther right here for you. But no, because that's where the grassroots start there. Honestly, grassroots starts at college campuses, period. Yeah. Any kind of movement you want to have, you got to start at, in those spaces.
Yeah. And, plus, college campuses, when you're of that age, your job is to do two things. Theoretically, is to give you an opportunity to think critically. And number two, those are the years you piss your parents off. So to be open to new ideas, be open to new stuff, right? So speaking of that, listen, man, this week, Lord Jesus, the debate was a lot.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
It was uncomfortable.
Yep.
And it feels like it puts a lot of things in perspective, where if I'm looking at the conversation of, let's say, the Kendrick Lamar thing, right? Is that theoretically Drake has been a bigger star than Kendrick Lamar. Because he sold more records and probably done more chart topping and this and that. But Kendrick's argument wasn't a sales argument. It was about a substance argument. And it took this battle for him to kind of put a mirror to somebody like Drake and be like, hey, man, we're going through fantastical moments right now, like politically in this country, discourse in this country. And you have an opportunity to have a platform, but Drake has never made any kind of music that's been, he ain't gonna have a public enemy record.
Right. Culturally significant. He's not dare I use the word, he's not in the social, not, I wouldn't even say political, like the cultural, social issues that permeate through the culture. He's never really had
Yeah.
it almost seems like he's completely, what's the word? He's not oblivious to it. Well, I guess
it's basically Republicans by food.
Yeah.
He's basically like,
he
I don't want to say anything that's going to.
Right. And you know what it since we're going down this rabbit hole,
let's go.
There was an episode in the show Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
The one where the kid who could cross for being white, okay?
Yeah,
but he was a black kid.
Yeah.
He was a black kid. He was a white kid until his white privilege wasn't going to get him what he really wanted,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden he started pulling out, dare I say, the black card.
Mm-hmm.
And it came across disingenuous because he had those around him. Remember, he was in that room and they kept asking him about those black things. As satire and as slapstick as that really was, what type of chicken did you when you eat fried chicken, what do you put on the chicken?
Yeah.
And it's like he didn't really know. He was struggling through that stuff, trying to be quick and sound like he's a part of it, but they could see right through it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, fortunately, I should say, unfortunate for him, but fortunately, people are now seeing it for what it is.
Yeah. Well, and
I was going to say to that point with the political thing, what you start to see, I said this earlier, and I was talking to you in another conversation. I think this is a good thing. Okay, we got one candidate that is absolutely insane. He's a lunatic. The dude's got 34 counts. And what planet are you on to where you still gonna rock with this dude?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that the New York Times put an op-ed out saying that Biden should step down. And he had a terrible debate. Yeah. Right. The New York Times was like, Biden should step down, but they said nothing after the 34 counts.
And I was gonna say, this is part of why I am like, this might be the moment where it literally is all hands on deck, because I think that, just being honest with you, we vote for personalities. We don't vote for issues necessarily. We might say that let's just keep it a buck, when Obama first became president, why did we vote for him?
Yeah.
We ain't vote for him for no issues. We vote because that brother was cool, he could carry himself well, and he was this.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. That ain't necessarily a thing that you should be ashamed of, but you should also be aware that's how we think.
And for the record, though, I don't want it to just feel like it was just because he was black, because, Alan Keyes ran and he was black, Jesse Jackson ran and he was black, Ben Carson, and he died. He's Godfather's cancer.
Oh
my gosh. What's his name?
This is what you said it. And think about how sad that is, because that dude, that dude, he caught it, and his family.
Look, but I get what you're saying. I think the issue that happens with politics, and I'm a bring in an artistic question with politics as well. But I think what happens with politics is, theoretically, I think with the discourse so heavy, especially like during the pandemic and all the stuff that was going on with the George Floyd murders and Black Lives Matter movement, you saw a huge uptick of black and brown people running for political office that never would have ran before.
Right.
Right. They were basically put in a position where they were like, look, this stuff looks so crazy. I guess I need to. Even my girl here, AOC, she wasn't getting into politics. It was just, hey, this stuff looks so crazy. I guess I gotta do something about it, right? And I think that the ideal is generally the public doesn't have to know all the ins and outs of policies. They just want to feel like whoever's in there are they competent enough to have my best interest at heart.
Sure.
And I think that, what's been happening the past few years, the weirdest normalization of politics has been driving me crazy. Like even when Trump was on trial, I remember I was reading this article that basically saying, hey, technically, since he's a former president, he's always going to have Secret Service. So there was an article about, hey, how are you going to operate Secret Service if you're against the president?
Sure.
It was a real article. It wasn't satire. It was like let's go through the logistics. I'm like, this should be like a very loud, haunting thing for America to kind of like really recalibrate. But this was just a random thing.
Well, let me see. Well, we're going to continue to go down this.
Let's go.
On Monday, this coming Monday, Supreme Court, they're going to weigh in their final decision on immunity. Okay? I am telling you right now, that is going to tell you everything you need to know about November.
Yeah.
I really believe that. It ain't that though.
He put a bunch of them in there.
It ain't nothing about, and what I mean by that is if they go one way or the other, this is going to be the bell cow for this country. Like we sit here, we get all caught up in the debate because I something that it might have been, oh gosh, I forgot her name. She's pretty dope. She did the bleach blonde bad bill. The chick.
I know you're talking about, I've seen it.
Oh gosh, what's her name? Anyway, she made a statement the other day that really was like, this is what I've been trying to say for a while, is that we haven't been in anything like this ever before, obviously. And there's no need to look at anything outside of what's going on right now to understand that this is what we need to do. It has nothing to do with whether Biden is slow in speech or whatever. We have to look at the fact that you're literally talking about if the other person is there, it's over. Period. I don't care if, and you don't want this. If Biden is 1 foot in, that versus this, that's it. You have to just keep it simple in that sense. I'm telling you, when they give their ruling on Monday, it will tell you everything you need to know about what's going to happen in November. I believe, because I just got this weird feeling that he will get his way.
Well, unfortunately,
what I mean is they're going to word it in such a way that's going to be lawyer, judge, judiciary talk that doesn't necessarily exonerate him per se, but it don't necessarily, it kind of graze it up just enough for them to be able to distill. And that's what I've been learning and seeing. We're starting to wake up more to those kind of things too. It's like, what does the law really say? What type of bylaws are in place in Congress? And you realize that Supreme Court ain't got no oversight, and they known this forever. Why do you think they're able to do the stuff that not even the stuff they're doing now? I'm just talking about in general. So if you want to have, they just got to, we talk about Roe v. Wade getting taken care of, affirmative action got taken away from. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Clarence Thomas recently.
So struggle if you want to with the other guy, whether he talks slow, whatever. If you hold on to that, then guess what? You ain't have nothing. Come November.
Clarence Thomas wrote that Brown versus the Board of Education was an overreach of the Supreme Court. The case that made that made segregation illegal.
They said segregation.
He's like, you know what? Maybe this is a little too much.
A little too much. But again, this is part of the unfortunate thing about our history in our country. At this moment, we're just now seeing, oh, that's how this works.
Yeah.
This is. I think because Clarence, you had enough guardrails around it, but we weren't as involved or as in tune to how this stuff really works. You know, back when he was saying that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, no, he said this like weeks ago. But, you know, I think.
Well, he was saying that for a while. He was saying that kind of stuff for a while.
I guess he can be a little bit louder because
he can be louder with it.
Because he feels like, he's just like.
And maybe that's the difference in it. People are a lot more emboldened, but that's even more reason for us to be emboldened.
Yeah, I had this conversation yesterday. So it's a professor who was having a conversation about. I forgot the terminology that he used. I wrote a note about it, but we were talking about, like, we were talking about college kids and critical thinking and that stuff. And I was like, you know, one of the issues is, you know, when you look at the idea of people are supposed to, it's like the peer review. Like I go back to this, Terrence Howard wrote this whole thing. I don't know if you heard this. You heard the story. Terrence Howard tried to write, he wrote this like 38-page thing about like, I got to so he had this whole like astrological.
He's a Scientologist.
I don't know what he is. I think Scientology, but he wrote this 38-page thing, sending it to Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's something scientific that he's trying to do, and he sent this years ago. Terrence Howard, he was just like, you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson basically discredited all my stuff, called me an idiot, blah blah blah. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was on YouTube about a week or two ago, and he's like, nah, I have everything that I wrote to him, and it's going to be page right now. And he basically debunked all the stuff that Terrence Howard said. But what he said, that I thought was very important, and it's worth watching. It's like a 15-minute video.
Sure.
But what he said that was really important, he said, look, he said, in my industry, if I'm a scientist proposing something, we have to have a peer review. I got to have people that are in my field that are going to tell me that, hey, this is a bad idea. Challenge me on ideas. Tell me, hey, this idea you're proposing is better than out there. It's like, you do that because we care about you. That if we're in this field,
argument too.
Yes. And so you're not wasting your time. That's also something, right? And
well, by the way, to add more doom and gloom, the Supreme Court just knocked down. What's the name of the oversight for how for the health, the oversight group Exxon, where Chevron, I think it's Exxon, where the company, that corporation was in place to help oversight how, you know, our clean water, you know, food, those things that helps to regulate, making sure that those things are in place for us, for our own good, for our own safety. Took that away, or leave it up to, you know, to the companies and to the, because what these companies they don't want oversight.
Yeah.
They want to be able to put whatever in whatever and sell it.
And try to internal police it. That always works. Yeah. Well, you know, the peer review thing I thought was interesting, because I think that, you know, it was a way of him saying, like, look, man, you need to have people challenge your ideas and challenge your thoughts. But what's ended up happening is people, like college-age kids, instead of them using college as an opportunity to express ideas, whether they're dumb or not, and having people push back or give you discourse, what you do in your rooms, whatever ideas or opinions that you have, you're basically inspiring people.
Sure.
And strengthen your other perspective that you already have, as opposed to going through the natural process of trying, you know, figure out, hey, does this work? Is this helpful?
Well, social media is 99% the reason why that stuff exists. I'll to your point, to that whole, you know, due process, those kind of things, argument, you know, we're going to bring it full circle. I was at Heroes Con a couple of weeks ago, and there was another convention. We were in the hotel bar, and we were there with some other colleagues, and there was another convention, the Jack and Jill, they're like Boy Girl Scout corporation. They had their regional convention there, and I saw someone there that both me and you know that's from here. There's no longer he's in the political sphere. He moved on to DC. I saw him in the bar, and I brought him over to my group to introduce him, and he started, telling them what he did in Washington, and it's all, he's part of Biden's administration and whatever. And so he leaves, and everyone's, wow, that's really cool. Said one guy said, oh, Jesus, like that. And I was like, what's that for? And he goes on a tirade about how horrible Biden's policies are, blah, 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 blah. He's one of them guys. But he's one of them guys that's all about, other countries paying their fair share. We pay too much taxes on it. We owe too much. We don't get anything back. He's not a MAGA guy, but he argues for them.
Diet MAGA.
He's upset. He's like, oh, your guy up there, he's freaking, 90 years, 100 years old, and the other lunatic, and it's all, gone to hell, and blah, blah, blah. And what you need to do is this. But anyway, so to your point, we started talking about that, of why he thinks the way he thinks. And then I had another friend who was on the other opposite end of the spectrum, super liberal guy, whatever. They're going at it. We're all kind of going at it, but those two, and then it dawned on me, I'm literally sitting in the country. We represented the entire country pretty much right there. Yeah, one end of the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum, and then we were all the ones.
It was a live Twitter feed.
But and I said to that point, I said to them, your point comes from the circles that you reside in, and yours come from the same thing. And that's your reality. And then when you finally come together, this thing is like, why can't you see it the way that I'm seeing it? Why can't it be the way that I'm telling you? And the point is, we're kind of waking both right. Your reality is your reality. Now, again, what makes the other guy so dangerous is he takes that reality and twists it just enough for it for you to really freak out. The Mexicans take all the black jobs.
What's a black job?
What's a black job?
I'm trying to figure that shit out.
We ain't have no more jobs if you let them in there. You think you had some? Ain't no black jobs. There won't be no jobs. But that was the thing. And at the end of that, there was a guy. There's also a guy whose wife works in Washington, and she said this to everyone. He said this to everyone. He said, "I'm hearing everyone talk here," because he was quiet the whole time. That's when when somebody quiet the whole time, they about to hit you. So he said, I hear you guys talking. And, the only reason I kind of held back was because my wife works in Washington, and she works in the administration as well. She works for one of the senators. She said this. She said, Biden definitely moves like he's been there way too long. He said, but everybody around him is amazing. He said, those are some of the most incredible people you ever seen on the planet. They know how to move and shake. Now, mind you, you can argue, if you got that kind of talent around you, why you ain't got these people out there more, right? But to his point, that is part of what we have to now really demand. We need to demand. I don't need to just see him. I need to see all of y'all. I need to see the people that are really the ones that's making decisions.
So you're saying that's the all hands on deck idea?
That's the all hands on deck idea, because if you do it that way, now, to going back to your earlier point, now I feel like, well, they got this, regardless of what goes on with him, right? That's honestly how it always should be working. But if you just kind of speculate and you don't really know, then you're kind of like, and all that took place at a comic convention. We were sitting there having this discussion about, about these issues in both sides. I saw what both sides was concerned about. Now, only because I am coming from a side that's a little more liberal. There's a conservative part of me that still can see some of the stuff that the other guys were saying. All right, that's a little crazy right there. But there is something in there that you are concerned about, and Trump took a hold of that thing. He twisted, and now he done turned it into this. When it's really this. That's what he's a master of, which is, again, that's the dangerous thing. So all hands on deck if you're gonna have to, snuff out that kind of nonsense.
Do you feel a responsibility for your work to be political?
I think every comic book is political or social. Everyone. My Little Pony is social. It has because there's stories in general. There's a lesson to be learned in your story. Nursery rhymes. Since the beginning of time, stories were meant to invoke emotion. Emotion is a part of our social ecosystem. And part of that social ecosystem then permeates to, some political aspects of things. You just can't avoid it. People drive me nuts when they say, "Oh, I hate politics and comics," or what? Because we got those folks that are like that. We got these make comics great again, which is kind of weird.
Macca,
yeah,
Macca.
You got folks in there like, "Oh, I need Captain America to just be Captain America." I say, Captain America was created because of political. Black Panther was created because of social and political. I mean, every character, the X-Men, period.
Yeah. I always had this joke in my head where I was just like, this is how America is really stupid and really hilarious. Is that if you take a show like Star Trek, right? William Shatner, the entire show is fucking with all these aliens. One episode,
no Caucasian woman,
kissing green chicks, right? As soon as he kisses you, a black woman, I'm fine like that. It's like, what?
Is that alien?
It's like, listen, man, I was all for him kissing that green woman, but you can't kiss that colored. So the logic makes no sense.
So, okay, we're going to go here.
Yes, let's go.
We're going to go here. How do you think people feel today with Kamala Harris right there? She's one, lack of better word, one heartbeat away. My, that's the thing that I'm the most concerned about. Not her, but that, how people really think. Do you all upset, or all right, someone said something. I don't want to say this for the sake of the person who said it, but someone on the political trail made this backhanded comment about Biden's, policies being disastrous, and him being old, and we being one step away from Kamala being the president. What does that mean?
Yeah, that means this country is more sexist than it is racist.
Well, how about both?
Boy, she got both of them.
and that's the part. That's the part that I am like. Are we going to let this, simply because this woman to me she may not be as Lord, what's her name? She ran for because we're talking about all these names.
Shirley Chisholm.
No. Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton definitely had all the skill, and here's a crazy thing about it. She wiped the floor with Trump in the debates, won all of them, and look what happened. Yeah. So you can get out of here with all this or whatever.
Yeah.
But she was But they ain't want her because, and I really believe, and it ain't had nothing to do with, I just don't like, it was, she's a woman.
Listen, man, and the people overwhelmingly that did that were white women. White women voted for Trump.
And now look what you got.
All right? And I think to a certain degree, a lot of white women would rather a Trump because it's like, as soon as Hillary come in here with her pantsuits and start saying, I can do this.
Well, here's the, see what's happening in this state. Just the other day, the elections, 2 women lost. And but 2 women in the entire Senate in this state. And the women that lost were Republicans.
Yeah.
White women.
Listen, man.
So, okay. This is the other side of it, too. And sorry to go down this dark path. Be careful what you ask for. Because when you get it, you're going to get it.
Listen, man, they talking about, Kamala's a heartbeat away from being president. But what's going to happen when Trump is one jail cell away from having President Tim Scott?
You think he the
I don't know if he's I don't know.
Doubt it's him. I think it's gonna be a white guy.
I'd say this, it probably has to be, but I'd say this. I don't know if it's gonna be Tim Scott, but no one has prepared themselves can do than Tim Scott. Like the fake proposal on the bench.
The shucking and jiving.
Man, he drives me crazy. Oh, I love you. Like this. Under those circumstances, I hope he get it. Under those circumstances, because then you would just be doing all this shit for nothing, right? It's one thing to shuck and jive and then get the job you want.
But here's the thing, though. Be careful what you ask for, because he do one thing wrong, or something doesn't really work out. He gonna get called outside his name if he ain't already.
No. Well, according to him, this isn't a racist country.
I was gonna say, but according to him, there's no racism in the country.
Listen,
fun stuff.
He go through this thing, gets so turned out. He gonna be, my man gonna have a dashiki on. He gonna be like, I'm no longer Tim Scott. I'm Tamola Palusa Shabazz.
Raheem.
Raheem. He gonna convert, man. He gonna get a Malcolm X tattoo.
If he is the nominee,
that's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be.
So one final thing that I'll say. I remember when Ta-Nehisi Coates was on Stephen Colbert show. This is probably during the pandemic and the George Floyd Black Lives Matter movement was going on. And one of the things that I think ends up happening, because I'm gonna do to you what Stephen Colbert tried to do to him. But like what ends up happening is when there's like civil unrest and a lot of stuff that is like affecting Black people, racial motivated stuff, things like that. A lot of times we have to be responsible for having perspective as well, right? Like we got to suffer through shit, and we also got to have, the silver lining all built up. But not all of us is like James Baldwin, who could say stuff so eloquently, right? Mm-hmm. But I remember when he's asking like Ta-Nehisi Coates, like, how does he feel about this? Does he have hope? And Ta-Nehisi was like, nah. It was just like, but it's not my job to have no hope. Like he's like, I'm just writing and documenting the stuff that's kind of going on. I wonder, do you share those sentiments? And if there's anything that you can take out of, the next few months, political scale going on before we go get something to eat after this, do you have any parting words for, and because look, you got kids, I don't, right? If I can act up because I have no legacy after me as of now, right? But there's a future that you see for your sons. So is there hope that you can spew?
I do have hope, and it may be the type of hope that kind of transcends logic, right? Because you got the faith side, right? Mm-hmm. Because like Kendrick Lamar says, we're going to be all right, regardless. Now, people need. Not people, the average person, they need, the reason why Stephen Colbert asked that question is because
you want to feel better.
You want to feel better.
Yeah.
So faith isn't about wanting to feel better. It's about knowing of something, having a vision of something that you ain't tangible yet, but this is your vision. This is your logic. It's how you see it when it's all said and done. That gives you a sense of peace, because I can't control Twitter. I can't control what's in my house, let alone I can only control me and what I do. And that's partly why we tell the stories that we're telling. I want to tell a story about a family of monster hunters set during the Harlem Renaissance, and their lineage permeates through the rest of time. Stay tuned. 1960s is coming. We're making a big announcement in San Diego.
So I guess
I guess
I'm gonna pull up.
Pull up Friday at 1 p.m. I think that's what it. But that's partly. I really believe, like, going back when he first became president, Trump, you started seeing this crazy unrest, people wailing in the streets. And you really felt like, even at that point in time, like, this can't be happening. And people took to the street, in a sense, they took to the streets because they said, we can't believe this happened. I do believe that there is, and this is the tangible side, that people they're not gonna let that happen. You know what I mean? And I don't know what that means in this. I know what it means in terms of, like, the day, that decides all this stuff. I know I can see that, but what does it mean leading up to it? What does it mean even after that? Because I don't think it's over after it. It just don't. I even told a friend of mine after when Biden won the last time, I was like, this thing right here this is going to be the worst 4 years of his life, is what I said.
Yeah.
That's why he looked the way he looked.
Yeah. He's like, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it. But it's like, which a lot of times great leaders don't want to jump in there. They're compelled to do it, right? Because I spoke to Jonathan Ive, who wrote the King biography, and just won the Pulitzer for that. And I asked him, like, about King's temperament. Was he always this guy that he was just like, when the bus boycott was happening, they asked him to speak. He told them, you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. Because he knew what that meant. As this young creature getting involved, as soon as I'm brought into this sphere, it's over for personal life. You know what I mean? But he did it because he was like, I'm compelled. I know I have to.
And there is and that's part of what I'm seeing as far as the hope, is that there are going to be people that will appreciate, when it's all said and done, the fact that he did that, when he easily could have said, I'm 80 years old, or whatever he was at the time. He was old then, right? But we didn't care. We was like, we need you now, and he did that. He sacrificed that time. We should see that. Let that galvanize us and understand what we're up against. I'm saying us, but I'm just saying, because I'm like, I love my boy Charlemagne, but I know what he's doing. He's doing what people is his form of galvanizing.
Yeah,
it's his form of it. It's like, we got to stop all this. Jasmine Crockett, that's her name, by the way.
Okay,
bleach blonde.
Yeah,
and she is that girl is a monster. That girl is so talented in how she is an orator, and her people love her. Now, you got to have that both. I do believe you have to have both of those talents to make it to be successful in this. Well, what you consider the right kind of successful in this, right? But when one of them things kind of drifts off, right? You just, okay, but this is what this is. And I think with your man, that's what it is.
Well, listen, Charlamagne said he's going to do the pod. So just, send him a message, I guess, when this comes out. And he'll be, oh, you got Sanford? I can get you on it. No, I talked to him a while back. We did email and I asked him to do it. He says, I got you. And I'm like, let me know when you're available. And I think the best way for you to get him is to tell him sometimes, let him pick one. But if he hears from Sanford Greene, it's different than hearing from Prince Jenkins. Well, you know what I mean?
We have some spirited conversation.
Hey, sure. You know what? I'm putting it out there now. we need to do. I need to moderate it. And we're having a kind of talk. You should do something like kind of like a thing where people pay to have, pay to see you guys talk and have a conversation about, being creatives out of South Carolina. What does that mean artistically, historically, South Carolina-cally? I don't know. Put the bug out there,
Put the bug out there, man.
Yeah, we do it in my art gallery. All right. I think I done took enough of your time. Let's go. I'm trying to grab something to eat.
Starving.
Yeah, I'm starving too. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Worthy Cause podcast on the Arena Network. Sorry that the lights are glaring in here. We're doing this interview at 9:00, and I figured that this is going to be, look, when Sanford says he can do it at a certain time, you do it when Sanford can do it. I'm so glad he's here. I didn't have anybody else to help shoot this. We only do it on the one camera thing. But John, I'm sure you're going to edit this up. Check out Sanford's work. Just type his name in. You can find all his work. You can find him on Instagram at Sanford Greene. It's Green with an E. All the wonderful work that he's doing and being an ambassador for South Carolina, as well as the comic book and hip hop industry, and just a dope black dude. So I appreciate it. My man for over 20 years. This is the Worthy Cause podcast. I go by the name of Priest Jacobs. Thank you guys for checking me out. Talk to y'all soon. Peace.